Hello, hello. Happy Motivational Monday, Q&A Monday. Whatever you are joining me with today, thank you for joining me today. I hope everybody is enjoying. I think it's a long weekend for everyone. It is up here in Canada where I'm joining you from, and it feels like summer. It's beautiful. I'm just checking to see if I am live here on Facebook. We're a couple minutes slow getting started. If you are joining me today, please tell me where you're from. If you're joining me, I'm assuming you might want to look at improving your balance and your stability, which is what we're talking about today. Last week, we did a discussion on bone building, improving bone strength, and those types of things. And one of the big things when you're dealing with bone density is for many of you, looking at reducing the whole falls and the whole break thing. So today we're going to be talking, it's kind of a follow-up to that segment. If you are dealing with balance issues, stability issues, you've declined, and you're looking at improving your balance and your stability, we're going to go over a few simple tips today. If you're not a regular user of your vibration plate now, sometimes when you're dealing with poor balance or you have deficiencies, it's fearful. It's not something that you are necessarily comfortable, using. This thing moves and you're standing on it. And there's often, I find, a stigma where many of you feel that you might, the machine is scary and may worsen your situation, when the reality is it's probably going to be short-term, the best thing to improve your balance. But it's also a very effective means of long-term, as we discussed last week, improving bone density and improving strength. So today we're going to go over a couple of important points. If you are joining me today, please say hello. Let me know if you can see and hear me before I continue to yap incessantly about how to improve your situation here. I'm going to turn off Facebook because it looks like I am live there. And before I get to the routine, I just want to talk with you briefly about a few things on the balance and the stability list. I have a few notes today. The big thing with balance and stability, and there's a number of reasons it can decline. Who I'm talking to today are folks that are looking to improve their situation. Thank you, Stephanie, for letting me know that you can see and hear me. If you are joining me, let me know where you're joining me from. And if you do have questions related to today's segment, I'm going to leave a healthy amount of time at the end for those of you that may have some. Specifically to balance, there's lots of different reasons it can experience what's called a decline. The vestibular system, something to do with your inner ear. Maybe you're on some medications that have affected that. Maybe you've had an accident. There's a number of ways that our body keeps us upright. It's kind of similar to riding a bike, how it's hard at first, but once you've got it, you're upright. Throughout our body, there are proprioceptors that tell your body kind of where your brain is at in relation to the rest of your body. There are also pressure sensing receptors on the bottoms of your feet. They can tell if you're walking on carpet or cold tile or a wet, slippery surface. And all of these things are going up into this central processing system of your brain that's, putting all of these things into play to keep you in good balance. Your eyes, your ears, even your nose, sense of smell, these things give your brain sense of your awareness and your environment around you. And if there's cognitive or processing issues, sometimes it's not a matter of there's a problem with your balance, but it's in how your brain is processing and compensating, physically for what you feel might be a balance issue. Improving your balance can also be simply, a matter of doing some strength training activities. A decline in strength can often, make you wobbly or less sure-footed. Flexibility. It's very, very, very important to work on flexibility. If we're stiff and we're tight, our body isn't reacting in the same fashion. And the feet in particular, you've got 26 bones in your feet. And if all the muscles are tight and rigid, if you're dealing with neuropathy and sensitivity issues, these things, if those muscles in your feet can't relax, it also affects your gait and your natural balance. So today I want to talk about things we can do. If you're in a situation where you're just not living life because you're afraid of taking a fall, you're second guessing yourself. I want to turn that around and start improving your situation and help you build confidence. The only way your balance is going to improve is by working on it and doing subtle little things to challenge it, if you will. So any of the things I'm going to talk about today, one of the cool things about balance and mobility, especially if you have a vibration plate now, is you can use it any time you need to address symptoms. I always say it's not always a big workout. If you're using your machine regularly and you're able to exercise and you're being active with it, balance is kind of a side effect, or just like circulation or getting stronger and more stable is just by association of doing your exercises on the machine. We're going to take that a few steps back. I'm going to get rid of my chair here so you can see things. And I've got a little bit of a few things set up here today to give you some options. I've got some ski poles here. I've got a machine with a handle. I'm working on a machine in a seated position with my stool. Hang on. And then over here, I have the Aeroflex step, and I also have a ladder, which is ever so good at holding my Life Pro sign up. So as I said, you can use any of these exercises as needed. In my special needs group, many of my therapists and even my parents will use the machine for a minute or two prior to doing other things with my little kids that have balance issues, because it makes them more stable. So if you're going to a physical therapy appointment, you're going to the gym, you're going to the mall to have coffee with your friends, and you're in that category of, I'm not always so stable, or I bump into walls from time to time, a minute or two on your machine before you go anywhere will improve your balance. Like it's the first thing that happens when you try a machine. Now, if you are dealing with poor balance, neuropathy, any of the slew of reasons I talked about earlier that may have declined your balance, I want to talk about a couple of easy ways. If you're not using your machine now, or you're not using it so regularly, I want that to change today. And if you're scared, or you've had a poor experience, or you've had a fall and you're scared, I want you seated in a stool. A lot of you ask me after my sessions how tall my stool is. It really depends on you. The goal is to get you seated at least a good 90 degree or slightly taller. I don't want you going downhill. It's not going to cause harm necessarily, but it's not really that functional. You know what it's like when you're trying to get out of a couch or a chair that's lower than your knees are and you're struggling. So I want you at a good 90 degree angle, and simply by placing your feet on the machine, no more than hip width apart. My feet aren't quite in the middle, but they're somewhere between the middle and the closest position. I just want to get some lymph and some circulation going. So if you're dealing with balance, before we get into any of the actual exercises, if you will, I want you doing a seated warm-up. I want you using a speed range that is at least at the mid-level. A lot of times in these sessions, people ask me what speed I'm using, but there's never just one factor. I do all my sessions in oscillating. Speed or program or whatever you're using for that is fine, but it's the distance between your feet, whether you're further or closer to the center, that determines the intensity. And if you're dealing with balance and proprioception issues, I want to improve your balance, but I don't necessarily want to challenge it too aggressively right now. And the wider you stand, not only the more intense is the movement because you're moving further, but it's more wobbly, it's more destabilizing. So when we get to standing positions, I don't want you any further than hip width apart. One of the things I mentioned earlier that contributes to poor balance and mobility is a lack of flexibility or a lack of sensation. For those of you that are dealing with neuropathy, if you have that symptom now, I want you warming up. I want you getting some circulation, some lymphatic movement, warming up the temperature of the muscles. All these things are going to make the getting to the standing, whether it's on the machine or the floor, much more stable. You're going to feel more sure-footed. So 1 to 2, maybe 3 minutes. There's a couple of different things that you can do here. You can just sit with your feet flat, But I did talk a little bit earlier about ankle flexibility, knee range of motion. All these things need to loosen up a little bit. So one thing that you can do very easily, one leg at a time, is just do some ankle turns. Okay, do 3 or 4 ankle turns per foot, just to keep the ankle mobility going. If you're dealing with swelling, puffiness in the ankles or the knees, all the more reason to start seated and get some of that fluid moving. That will also contribute to a decrease in swelling with continued use. Another thing that I'd like you to do as a variation is to stretch your calves. You can do this seated. You're going to take one leg at a time. You may not be able to straighten your leg completely like I am, but I want you pulling those toes towards you, and you're going to feel a stretch in the calf. I also want you doing another rep where you're going to point the toe, stretching the top of the foot and the shin. Do a couple reps each side. Lift and pull that calf towards you. Lift and point the toes. You can do this alternating, however you want to do it. Do about 3-4 reps a side. Get a good stretch. If you're dealing with restless leg or those types of things at night, this is another good way to just end your day, to get some circulation and some lymphatic going and hopefully alleviate that restless leg if that's something that you're dealing with. So I want to stress again, anyone that's dealing with neuropathy, neuropathy in itself can present a fall risk because you're not feeling your feet. The receptors in your feet aren't as effective at doing their job and telling your brain, the floor is slippery or the sun level or whatever that may be. So just by using the machine in a seated fashion, you will slowly see an improvement in your neuropathy symptoms. The biggest way to improve any of these situations is to be consistent with this. I guarantee you, even just sitting here doing some ankle turns, some calf stretches, if you were to commit to this for the next 3 to 4 days, not only are you going to have more sensation and flexibility in the lower extremities, but you're going to have more energy. You're probably going to be sleeping better. You might be having better bowel movements. There's all kinds of newbie side effects besides the balance I want you guys to start realizing if you haven't been using your machine. And, be progressive. So this is a good way to start if you are dealing with poor mobility and you're not able to stand for long periods or you fatigue easily. This may be as far as you want to go. For the rest of you that are working on balance, but you're a little more stable, you're comfortable standing on the machine, but you don't want to do anything too crazy yet. The next progression from sitting would be, because another thing that really contributes to better balance and stability is good lower extremity strength. Good strength in good flexibility in the ankles, the knees, and the hips. But strength is a very critical factor, and a loss of strength is also a contributing factor as to why you may be decreasing in your balance or in your stability. So the next variation, if you feel stable enough, would be, and I think I'm going to cut my head off just slightly here. Perfect. I want you just standing, hip width apart, and I want the knees slightly bent. When you're dealing with balance and mobility issues, especially maybe you're in a recovery situation from a stroke or you've had a fall, the fear factor is different. And sometimes when you feel the vibration in the head, we're so busy paying attention to the vibration in the head and how much we don't like it, we're not paying attention to what's happening to our legs. It is not harmful in the head. It just takes some getting used to. But if you're feeling it too much in the head, you can hear it in your voice. You're standing tall. Bend the knees just slightly and let those natural shock absorbers kick in. And what I'd like you to do, again, on the flexibility line, I don't want you getting too crazy yet. If you're feeling just comfortable standing on the machine, not ready for any squats or anything yet, I'd like you to start working range of motion in this area. So we're going to do some pelvic tilts, and you can put your hands on your hips. If you're not doing well with mobility and you feel standing on the machine is too much, but sitting isn't quite enough yet, you could use a machine with handles. Those are options out there. Because balance improves so quickly, it's very common that people that get machines with handles, in my experience, regret getting machines with handles because you don't need the handles very long. So today I came up with some other ideas. If you're a skier, these are downhill ski poles. One of them took a bend. as you can see in one of our crashes going down the mountains. But sometimes it's just a matter of feeling like you have something a little bit more to hang on to. And usually if you are dealing with a recovery situation, you got a weak side or a strong side. So the next variation I want you to do, if you're not quite ready for a squat, what you want to do a little bit more than just standing, is we're just going to do some weight shifting. So we're going to take our weight and we're going to shift it to one side, shift it to the other. Not necessarily throwing our hips way off or anything. We're just shifting the majority of the body weight to one side, and then we're going to shift it back to the other. And if you do have a weak side, you might want to give it a little bit more attention than the strong side. If you've got a strong side and you're dealing with a deficiency on the other, you have a tendency to wear out the strong side. So, you don't just work one side, but you may want to work one side more than the other to address tension, build strength. But I just want you focusing on, we're not quite skiing, but we are shifting weight from side to side. And if this is feeling okay and it's not too scary, a really easy way to improve your balance in any of your standing positions is to slightly close your eyes. Okay, I want you making sure you're stable before you do this. And what you're going to do is you're going to close your eyes for 2 to 3 seconds. Longer if you feel comfortable, but let's start with that, and then we'll reopen them. So we're going to close the eyes, shift, shift. And when your body is not able to use its sight, it has to rely on those proprioceptors and the pressure sensors and every other sense in your body versus sight, which is our primary, that's the one we rely on the most. So by taking the sight out of the equation, it kind of forces your body to process what's happening to it differently. And you will find it's a really simple way to boost balance. So the next progression from here, if you're feeling comfortable, I still want you hanging on to something for stability. So whether it's handles, poles, maybe you've got a ladder or a support rail on the wall. Oh, hang on. We're going to go into a one leg. Now, a one leg is a little bit more challenging than just shifting the weight. You're putting all of your weight onto one leg. You want to try and keep the hips nice and level, but this is going to pick up the strength a little bit. So we're going to shift to one leg and lift one leg up, and try not to use your handles too much. Try and use that one leg for stability. Then switch. Lift the other one just slightly. I think at the gym you'd call this a pistol if you went deeper into like a one-legged squat. But just lift one leg. If that's too scary and shifting weight is a little bit more comfortable, I just want you to experiment and see where you're at. But this would be the next progression. Okay? Next one from there, if you're feeling comfortable and that's not too hard, is the basic squat. If you're dealing with extra weight, you're trying to build up strength, if you've got other goals, the squat's going to burn a few more calories. It's also going to rapidly help you improve strength in the lower extremities. It's going to help with the weight loss because it's the biggest group of muscles that you have. So if weight loss is a goal, what I want you to do is bend and squat. We're not moving up and down. We're just holding still. I want you hanging on for stability, but not for dear life. So if you're going beyond your range of motion, you're going to feel like you're falling forward or backward. If you were to let go, you should be comfortable on your own. This is just more of a mental thing. You feel sometimes better if you have something to hang on to. And if weight loss, like I say, is the goal, try and get your squats early in the day. Push those legs to a point of fatigue. Early in the day, it's going to boost your metabolism. So effectively throughout the day, you're burning more idle calories. So the last variation standing that I wanted to show you is just some slight step ups. So if you're feeling a little bit stable, you've done some squats, you want to mix things up a little bit, but you still feel like you might need a little stability, slowly we're stepping up one leg and back down. Okay, you don't have to have a huge pace. If you're dealing with weakness, if you fatigue easily, just go at your own pace, whatever feels comfortable. Okay, if stepping backwards off the machine like I'm doing is completely scary, you can keep going. Step over, turn around, step back up, step back down, turn around. Do what you need to do to feel comfortable, okay? If you are dealing with a deficiency, or you've got one side that has, an injury, let's say, and it's, you can't really work your entire body at the same time, or maybe you've had a stroke and you've got some paralysis on one side of the body, but you want to keep the other side of the body going. I have beside me the AeroFlex step. So this is another way, if you do have a weakness on one side, you can put one side on the machine, one side on dry land. And a lot of times when you're dealing with poor mobility, it's easier to do something like this than maybe step up off the machine. So using an aerobic step, like the AeroFlex step, is a good way to start isolating one side if you're working one side more than another. But it's also just a really good way, if you just don't quite feel comfortable standing on the machine yet, but you want to, the more weight bearing that you can do, the better it's going to be in the long run for the bone density, the strength. But sometimes it's our own mind, or we've had a fall and we're just not sure of ourselves. So using something like this where you're only working one body part at a time, you can do all the same exercises, but one's working harder than the other. This side, you're like I say, you're on dry land and you're stable. So it's just another little trick that you can try if, and if you don't have the AeroFlex step, anything that's about 5 to 6 inches, which is the height of the average machine, is something that you might want to consider. The last little tip that I would recommend, and again, it's kind of because there's a bit of an overlap, is if you're comfortable standing on the machine, you're ready to start progressing a little bit further. The squats are great, but you're not feeling the challenge anymore. I recommend adding mass. These are sandbags. LifePro has some amazing click weights. They've got the new Triform barbell and kettlebells, but by adding a little bit of mass to your frame, these are 15 pounds each. So by doing your exact same exercises, but by adding a little bit of weight to your frame, you're not only going to accelerate weight loss, but you're going to boost strength a little bit. The reason I use sandbags and even milk jugs filled with water, specifically for the balance stuff, is they kind of move around. So they add to the destabilization of not only, the core and everything else that's trying to keep you stable on the machine, but by adding that extra little bit of mass, it's going to work the system a little bit harder. It's going to help the bone, the muscle strength, and the biggest, I hate to say it, step in the equation here, as always, is be consistent. Wherever you're starting in your journey of improving your balance and stability, I want you to keep progressing. Balance is one of those things, like anything else. If you don't use it, you're gonna lose it. And if you're at a point in your life where you've had a situation and you need to do something about it, all the more reason to use your machine, not only daily, but sometimes multiple times daily. Like I say, if you're using your machine just to improve your balance or get a little sensation back in those the neuropathy pain in the feet, it's going to improve your situation. This is a self-care situation. I don't want to get questions about, well, how often can I do it and for how long? A minute or two is what I'm talking about. This is a very specific spot treatment thing. If you're doing a workout regularly now and you don't really want to add a lot of time or exercises, try just incorporating closing the eyes, or maybe add a specific balance position of some type. So it really depends on where your balance is at. But the only way to improve your balance is to challenge it wherever it is that you're starting. So I want to come back a little closer here and get some questions answered, but my one light is blinding me here. There. So I'm going to come back here now. It's very warm here today in Canada. Feels like summer. I want to make sure I covered all my yappings here. Sit down. No, I think that was good. And for those of you that weren't with me last week, as I said, today's kind of the perfect follow-up to last week's session, which is bone density, improving it. And today a lot that goes hand in, there's a big short-term and long-term set of goals when it comes to bone density short term. It's more about preventing those falls, reducing the risk of falling. And many of the things that we were working on today can improve your balance and your stability even within the course of one session. So this is really a short-term win, short-term goals, short-term benefit. Bone density, weight loss, muscle strength, those types of things are a bit more of a mid to longer term goal, but with consistent, regular use, it's very, very rare that I hear from clients that use their machine regularly that they have balance issues. I can't even think of one time that a client's like, I use my machine regularly and I'm having problems with my balance. It's like if you're using your machine regularly, it's going to improve in some way, shape, or form. So I promised to keep my yapping minimal today. I still managed to do 20 minutes on the machine of 3 or 4 minutes of yapping somehow. I want to thank who's with me here today. So Stephanie, thank you again. Hello, Mary Ann. Hello, Miss Wilson. Nice to see you. Walking poles are also a good idea. I'm using my son's ski poles today. He's a little taller than me. So when I'm on the machine, they're a little bit taller. I don't feel like I'm leaning over. I don't really like to use poles. I used to be a much better skier for that matter too. I want to hear if any of you now are dealing with balance or stability or even fall prevention type questions. If you have any tips you want to share. As I said earlier, at the end of the day, the biggest thing that you will notice if you're using your machine regularly, without even sometimes looking for it, is an improvement in balance. Most people don't join the gym or start a whole exercise program to improve their balance. That's usually something you think of at the physical therapy office or something, post knee or hip surgery. But just by using the vibration machines, I give a lot of credit for the lymph and the circulation being a passive benefit. But even sooner than that, balance and stability is one of the shortest term gains that I can give you, and even within a minute or two. So throughout the course of your day, if this sounds like you that I'm talking about, and you need to improve your balance, all you got to do is get on your machine a couple times a day, or just prior to the heading out or wherever you feel your anxiety setting in, and you really will within the course of 3 to 4 days, if you stick with just minimal activity, I guarantee you're going to notice a bit of an improvement on that. For those of you that have got balance and you want to challenge it further, like I say, it's really easy to just close your eyes for periods of time to challenge yourself and mix up the routine that you might already be doing. And if you're a yoga or a Pilates person, there's all kinds of different balance and stability exercises. Please remember that a vibration plate is simply an environment. It's an environment that makes your exercises more effective, less strenuous, and it reduces the amount of time you need to spend doing traditional exercises. The side bonus is there's just a lot of passive benefits you get by doing those exercises in this environment. Marianne has lymphedema, and just using this has increased her balance. Thank you for noticing that. It's amazing when you lose that confidence or that sure-footedness. Like I don't really have balance issues, but I do at times. And it's when my knee's bugging me. When I've overdone on my knee or I've worn heels or something, I tend to, favor it and lean to the right side. Just a couple of days ago, I was walking down the hallway and I walked into the edge of the door frame with my shoulder, and I thought, really, I'm favoring my knee that bad? So for me, no big deal. But if I was 85 and I'm dealing with massive osteoporosis, and I could crack a bone or shatter it. So the biggest gift I can give any of you today is the ability to improve your situation. But I can't make you do it. I can't make you show up and use this thing regularly. So all I can do is hope to nag you to death to remind you to be consistent. And don't beat yourself up if it's not always a workout. Sometimes it's just about moving and feeling better, and the rest of it kind of falls into place on its own. Thank you for sharing that, Marianne. I know a few names here in the feed, and I know some of you have gotten more than better balance using the machines. But as I said, it's kind of one of those passive benefits we just don't always think about until it's a problem. Until we lose the ability to do something, we don't always appreciate it. Whether that's strength, whether it's gaining weight, whether it's, recovering from a surgery that we shouldn't have had in the first place. balance is one of those very simple indicators that's telling you things are declining. And if you're finding you're inactive or you're sedentary in your life 9 to 5, your work life, sometimes it's just a matter of a couple minutes before you head out the door and a couple minutes when you get home at the end of the day. I don't want you thinking it's got to be a big, huge time and effort for the balance and the stability piece. But if you are moving and feeling better and more confident in doing that, the exercise tends to come by association because you've got the confidence to do it. Stephanie loves her Rumblex 4D. I was using the Plus in today's demo, and the other one with the handles is Life Pro's Trim Light plate. It's a little bit smaller than the Mini. It does have an optional handle. I love that model for my pediatric kids. If you're much more than about 5'6", 5'7", the handles are nice for stability, but I wouldn't count on them for dear life. They're not meant to be like a chin-up or a push-up bar. They're just designed to give you a little bit of stability. So I hope today helped everyone. And I always just love hearing from you if you've tried something new or you've incorporated it. Sometimes we get stuck in our routine, and balance is one of those things you want to ever be progressing or at least changing what you're doing. The body gets very stagnant and used to things, and the body is really lazy. It's always going to try and find an easier path to get from point A to B. So mix up either your settings, how you're standing, close the eyes, add some weights. If you're being consistent with your activities, I recommend mixing things up or changing them, tweaking them a bit weekly, just to keep those changes going and keep you progressing forward. Again, balance, like anything else, if you're not using it, you're going to lose it. And the best way to improve balance and stability is simply challenge it a little bit once in a while. And the environment of the plate just makes it more effective in less time. And, the more that I can help improve your balance and stability and reduce the risk of those falls. I said last week in my bone density session, nobody ever died of osteopenia or osteoporosis. It's the fall, the break, the recovery or lack of recovery that sometimes presents a bigger issue in the long run. So bones can get stronger, muscles can get stronger, balance can improve. It just happens a lot quicker than some of the other benefits. Kim, I introduced my granddaughters to my vibration plate this weekend. They loved it. Yeah, they did. In 16 years of doing this, I have never met a kid that didn't like a vibration machine. According, if you've introduced it properly, you tell them they might be a little bit itchy. Kids are just a smaller version of us, and I'm blessed to be your guide with these machines for both fitness and medical for many of you. You've got nothing to lose and so much to gain. So if you've got a machine and you just haven't been using it due to fear, I really hope today just instills a little bit of confidence, a little bit of motivation. And if you have questions that you didn't want to ask in the live today, or you're watching this on a recorded basis, please just tag me at Debbie with a Y if you ever have any questions. If you've got a session that you'd like us to talk about, something in particular that you'd like us to cover. We're all about ideas. I like to think that I know everything. But sometimes I get stuck in my own brain and what works for me. And I don't always, it's hard to be other people. So if there's things that you guys want us talking about and you'd like us, even sometimes it's just a reminder, sometimes you got to go over things and readdress them because we forget. Keep it simple, keep it consistent, and you're gonna have better benefits and win that race in the long run. So thank you everybody for joining me today. Thank you, Marianne, for your very kind words. I look forward to seeing you guys next Monday, same time, same place. Not sure what I'm doing for a session yet, but I'll come up with something interesting. We'll see you guys next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If it's a long weekend for you, enjoy what's left of it and have a great rest of your short week. Thanks so much for joining me today, guys. Don't work too hard.